The day my father ironed a shirt he no longer had a reason to wear, I thought he was just running late for work. I didn't understand why he stood in front of the mirror longer than usual, adjusting a tie that looked perfectly straight. Before leaving, he smiled at all of us, picked up his old leather briefcase and said, "See you this evening." Years later, my mother told me he had already lost his job 3 days before that morning. He was only pretending. My name is Daniel, and I was in secondary school when my father stopped being an employee and became a man trying to protect his family from a truth he wasn't ready to say out loud. Growing up, my father always seemed unshakable. He had worked for the same company for almost 20 years. Every month followed the same rhythm. Salary came in. Bills were paid. My siblings and I got little treats on payday. Sometimes he'd stop on his way home with meat pies or bread still warm from the bakery. Friday evenings often ended with laughter in the sitting room. "We've survived another month," he'd say, raising a bottle of malt while we cheered as though we'd won a trophy. I honestly believed life would always be like that. Then one Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. He came home earlier than usual. I noticed because he wasn't carrying his lunch flask. My mother met him at the door. They didn't know. I was walking toward the kitchen. I heard him say quietly, "They've let hundreds of us go." My mother's hand covered her mouth. "They didn't even give us notice." He shook his head. "We'll be fine." Those were the first words he spoke after losing the job he'd given most of his adult life to. "We'll be fine." The next morning, he dressed exactly as he always had. Same shirt, same tie, same polished shoes. He even sprayed the same cologne. I assumed everything had been sorted out. Only years later did I realize he had been leaving home every morning so the neighbors wouldn't ask questions, so his children could keep believing their father was still in control. He spent those days carrying copies of his resume from one office to another. Some days he waited for interviews. Some days nobody even looked up when he entered. Every evening he returned home around the same time he normally finished work. If we asked how his day went, he'd smile. It was fine. It wasn't. The changes arrived so slowly that none of us noticed them all at once. The generator stayed off longer during power cuts. My mother started saying things like, "Let's wait until next month." Weekend outings disappeared. Birthdays became simple prayers over homemade food. The television subscription expired. Nobody renewed it. One evening, I asked if we could replace my worn-out school shoes. My father looked at them for a long moment. "They'll last a little longer," he said gently. I nodded. That night, I cleaned those shoes until they almost looked new. School fees became another battle. Instead of paying everything at once, my parents paid in small installments whenever they could. More than once, I stood outside the principal's office waiting for permission to return to class. Each time I came home embarrassed, my mother would smile as though nothing was wrong. "It'll be sorted tomorrow." Somehow it always was. Only later did I learn. She had started buying extra goods to sell from home. She woke before sunrise to prepare them. When I asked why she seemed so tired, she'd laugh. "I'm just keeping busy." Everyone in that house was protecting someone else. My father protected us from fear. My mother protected us from worry. And we children pretended not to notice the cracks because we wanted to believe our parents' smiles. The house itself became quieter. Not because anyone told us to be quiet. We simply learned. When you know your parents are carrying something heavy, even laughter begins to feel expensive. The night that changed me forever came during the rainy season. I woke because I heard voices in the sitting room. The lights were off. Only a rechargeable lamp glowed on the table. My father sat with his head in his hands. "I've failed you," he whispered. "You haven't failed anyone," my mother replied. "I can't even provide the way I used to." His voice broke. "I've never felt this useless." Then I heard something I had never imagined possible. My father cried, not loudly, just enough for the silence between his words to hurt more than the words themselves. My mother reached across the table and held both his hands. "You are still the man we married. The children still have their father. This season will pass." I stood frozen in the hallway. Every problem I'd ever thought was important suddenly felt small. The next morning, I didn't ask for the money I'd been saving up for. I stopped mentioning things my friends had. When classmates bought new shoes or phones, I smiled and changed the subject. After school, I started helping my mother with her business before doing my homework. Nobody asked me to. Childhood had simply ended without announcing itself. Months passed before my father finally found another job. It wasn't as prestigious, the salary wasn't as good, but the day he brought home his first paycheck, he placed it on the dining table without saying a word. My mother smiled through tears. That evening we shared soft drinks, not because we suddenly had plenty again, because hope had returned. Life improved gradually after that, but something inside me never returned to what it had been before. I stopped believing that security lasts forever. I stopped assuming every smiling parent is free from worry. Most of all, I stopped measuring my father by the size of his paycheck. Today, whenever I see a father leaving home in neatly pressed clothes, I remind myself that appearances tell very little. Some men walk confidently while carrying burdens no one around them can see. The day my father lost his job wasn't only the day our income disappeared. It was the day I saw the invisible weight a parent carries behind a reassuring smile, and I learned that a father's greatest value was never the job he held. It was the courage to keep walking out the front door every morning, determined not to let his family lose hope before he did.